You are listening to the Lawyer Stories podcast with host Benny Gold. Lawyer Stories was founded in July 2017 and is an expanding global network of lawyers and law students sharing their personal journeys to the noble profession of the practice of law. Join us on this podcast as we dig deeper into these stories and hear from lawyers and law students from around the world in all areas of the legal profession. Here at Lawyer Stories, we believe that every lawyer has a story. What's yours?
Welcome to the Lawyer Stories podcast with Benny Gold. Today we welcome in our very special guest, Boston attorney, Isabela Orlacchio-Garcia. How are you today?
I'm great. I'm super excited to finally be here, and I'm glad to see you again.
Great to have you. Welcome in. And Isabela practices representing injured workers and personal injury right in Boston, about an hour down the road from where I live, which is pretty cool. So it's great to have you in.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're looking forward to discussing your story.
Awesome. I'm excited. Always happy to speak about my story with you.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, we appreciate all your support on Lawyer Stories as well. We've worked really hard to build something special. And I know that you've been, you've done some videos for us. We've featured you a couple times. And speaking of one of the first feature, I believe, which we did September 29th, 2021. I loved really how you started your story. And I think a lot of people took to this. You wrote, "Some little girls dream of getting married and taking their husband's last name. I couldn't wait to add Esquire, or ESQ rather, at the end of mine." So go ahead, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think that, it was kind of the first foundation of thing when I decided of, what sort of attorney I wanted to be and who I looked up to. I was really fortunate to, even though, it was my father and he was a male, to encourage me to work for my career, to be proud of my name, honestly, in a man's world. He always used to tell me that the women he was the people he was most afraid of in the courtroom were women. And I think that we still measure success in society as, being married, having children, and all of those things are invaluable to me. But to have pride in having a career and your accomplishment and adding Esquire, and really just dreaming of that day, maybe not necessarily to walk down the aisle, but to be sworn in. And just also letting women know that it's okay to not apologize for feeling that way, of putting your career at the forefront of your goals.
Right, because as you said, you do see that the practice of law for many years was sort of an old boys club, so to speak.
Yes.
And now it's definitely turning and different. So I think that's a terrific thing to stand for.
I think it is changing, but I still think, unfortunately, it is the boys club that you spoke of, but it's still a lack of women, working together. So some of the animosity or, discomfort that I felt, as a new lawyer has not necessarily been, in the male dominated circles, but have been women with a lot of experience who have been unfriendly or unwelcoming, and we are the minority. So instead of banding together, there's still a lot of division because they came into a different world where they really had to work to prove they weren't, just like any other women. And so there is, I think, a natural animosity towards women that I think will change as young women attorneys kind of build our own, bridges together.
Yeah, very good. So you tell us you grew up in Mexico and you went to 16 different schools before you graduated.
I did.
So how does that happen?
So it was kind of crazy. So I grew up in Cuernavaca, Mexico. And, my dad was always based in Boston. My mom was a model when I was growing up. And she would just kind of get up on a whim and move place to place or have different jobs she was, asked to campaign for. And literally by the time I graduated high school, I had gone to 16 different schools. And so in one way, it gave me the skills to make friends with anybody really quickly, but I didn't have that, 10-year friendship that people have had since kindergarten. So that long-term bond, I didn't have. So there wasn't someone I was going to call, "Oh, I've known him since kindergarten," but it gave me the skills to read people, to read my environment really quickly. And ultimately, that has been my biggest skill, I think, in being an attorney, is hearing people's stories and relating to everybody from all walks of life, because we have so much more in common than we even know.
Yeah, no, that totally makes a lot of sense. And well, let me ask you this. So like, what was your law school experience like? That's a very
So,
broad question, but like maybe likes or
no,
dislikes.
well, it was interesting because I went to New England Law. I was in the night program. And to be honest, I made relationships with all sorts of people from all walks of life. I think the night school in particular was, it was a really strong bond, a group of people who are in night school are older, they have families, they're
Yeah.
working 9 to 5s, they have a different level of commitment. They're there because they want to be there. I shared my graduating class, there were people in their 50s just starting
Right.
in law school.
Sure.
There were mothers, and it made you want to work harder because people took it really seriously, and it was admirable. We really lifted each other up. It wasn't that competitive, have to get to the top, very self-centered. It was different.
You weren't
And I
like
think
ripping out pages in the horn books in the library.
no, yeah. So everyone kind of worked together. But what was interesting was that I think, again, being a woman going in, and I'd one time I went to class like in a mink fur coat,
Nice.
or I'd be dressed to the nines, and I think people would be frustrated because they wouldn't see me necessarily like living at the library every day writing outlines. That's not the sort of learner that I was. I was out there talking with people, hearing people's stories, building my book of clients that I would need in the future. And that's just what worked for me, because we're in Boston, we're in a very competitive state for law school.
Yeah.
I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
the top schools, you have Harvard, you have this. So when you're in a school, and I love New England very, very much for what it offered me, but it's not a top school. So you need to build relationships and allies, and you need to be thinking about your clients, not necessarily being number one in the class.
Right. Right. So yeah, no, that definitely it's a practical approach. It seems like a more practical approach, especially with the night program. Like you said, you do get untraditional students, and I think a lot of people also like learn how to work during the day. They've had jobs, they know how to do
Yeah.
the 9 to 5. My biggest thing was time management. My first year of law
Yes.
school, I realized like how crazy time was. Like I'd sit down at 2 in the afternoon and knew if I wanted to finish something by 11, I'd have to really like buckle down to do it. So like that makes a lot of sense. What would your advice be for a first year law student?
So I think my advice for the first year law student would be not to be consumed in knowing everything. In, it's not to say don't read the books, don't read the case law. Yes. But like you said, that time management skill, looking around and the people in your classroom, those are the invaluable tools that you will take on no matter what sort of attorney you're going to be. Befriending your professors, having a courteous relationship. Your reputation is everything from day one. The person you walk in, when you walk into law school that first day, the sort of person that you showcase you are to everyone,
Right.
that stays with people. And just building those allies. I mean, when I had to be out, or when I relied on someone for an outline, that's what's important. Being a know-it-all isn't going to do you any good when you're isolated in your profession. So just really carrying
Right.
yourself with class and courtesy, and looking at the people around you, not as competitors, but as allies. Like everyone's in this together, and it can be overwhelming. And I think recognizing too, like, it's hard. It's okay. That's not, being weak. You're in it together.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that I like what you said about that, like looking at everybody as allies, and it's great. You make some great points. So speaking of the practice of law, congratulations. I think this is like your year into being in the law
Yeah.
office. So congratulations with that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and furthermore, regarding the practice, like you're an advocate for people who need it the most. Like, so like, what does that mean for you? Being an advocate for people who can't advocate for themselves.
So yeah, well, it's funny, I was having this conversation just recently. When you think you're going to go into the practice of law, and it's glamorized, and it comes off very self-centered, or in Hollywood as being, the center of attention, the know-it-all, the show-off, the person with the witty response. As you get into the profession, you are an advocate for others. You are serving those who don't have a voice. You're using your voice not to speak for yourself, but in particular, the sort of clients that I serve that feel intimidated just existing in a workforce, or, exercising their basic rights. It's a different sort of responsibility, because you're carrying people that not only don't know how to speak up for themselves, but are sensitive to being, misjudged in the environment that they're in, and the world around them. So I think for me, speaking up for the little people are those who honestly work their asses off. And it's intimidating for anybody to, when you have something to lose, when you are feeding your family at home, when you don't want to jeopardize getting fired or saying that you're mistreated, like really being a strong advocate. And I think, like, going back to the point of me going to 16 different schools, or me honestly growing up absolutely with a life of privilege and educational opportunities, using that for the good for other people, not to serve yourself. And
Right.
and that's what being a lawyer to me is honestly all about.
Oh, that's awesome. And you say being a woman in power is your superpower? Like, so, and but it's somebody else's kryptonite. I know you touched on it a little bit earlier, but you
Yeah,
want to
no,
explain more about that?
it's true. Like I mean, I say this and I really live by this. Men and women are not equal, and I am okay with that. I think that women have so much strength that they don't need to, compare themselves to men. They don't need to apologize for them. We have that empathy. We have that edge. We have our approach to the world. And so instead of trying to conform to, being in a man's world or perspective, or adjusting our behaviors or thoughts, owning our individuality and what makes us different. It's just, I think it's tough in today, where we feel like we have to choose, one world or the other, or, being equal. I personally, I own being a woman, and I wouldn't want it any other way.
Right on. So, congrats again on being 1 year
Thank you.
an attorney or in your office. So, as a new attorney, what is your advice to new attorneys? We talked about advice for first year law student, but like, what's your advice after this first year for attorneys?
Well, so there's two things. Number one, we are in a world right now where marketing and social media and all these things,
Yeah.
They reign king. In my opinion, I still think just doing a good job, putting your head down, working hard, and putting your clients first is an invaluable. It's what counts in the end. You can have all the top algorithms and Facebook posts, but when you're making your name is your word, following through on things and focusing on that, not making it ego, forward or centric. And secondly, listening to the people who have done this for a long time.
Sure.
There's something I really, really appreciate, like about hearing the old school lawyers, hearing about their days, their ways. Yeah, maybe it's outdated in the sense of, they weren't tagging people on Facebook,
Yeah.
but those were the people that went into the profession and just did the grit. And I don't think anything beats just old school hard work.
Okay.
Sitting down at your computer, following up, speaking to clients. And that's what I've also really realized is clients just want to hear from you. They just even remembering an appointment or a check-in, not having, an assistant or thinking it's beneath you, just following it through all the way from the beginning.
Responding to emails and phone calls. So I did actually want to get to the social media thing and ask you, like, what your thought is, like, these days on like social media and attorneys. Like, do you think has it been helpful, like, in getting clients? Do you think like that's
So number one, I mean, I'm just terrible with social media and technology in total. I think it depends on the quality of the client. So I think there's two sorts of attorneys. There's ones who want volume and those who want quality. I don't think you can have two of the same.
Okay.
There are practices that I really admire for their business ethics and development. And, you have 50 case managers, and then you talk to an attorney and they would have no idea who any of those clients are. One thing I pride myself on is I know every client's name. They all have my cell phone number. That's what I want to be remembered as. And I think in terms of like being Mexican and the Hispanic population, there are not many Hispanic attorneys. There are people in an office that speak Spanish, but it means a lot when somebody looks like you, speaks like you. So I think it is a tool, it's the way of the future. It's something that I'm sure I'll have to utilize or things as I expand.
Right.
But like I said, there's really nothing more powerful than just doing a good job and making a client happy. And that word of mouth is something there is no secret sauce to. You just have to do it.
For sure. Do you have any like particular do's and don'ts for, a new lawyer on social media?
Well, I will tell you, do not maybe do tequila shots and post that publicly. Maybe keep that to your close friends.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. Well, secondly, I would think that don't think that you're not searchable. That's, you can do as many aliases names as you want.
Everybody needs a tequila shot now and then, right?
Well, I mean, especially if you follow me, but no, and that's in one way. I think clients do appreciate seeing that a lawyer is human. A lawyer has family. They have the same interests as you. They're going to go out on a Friday night. I think, people, when you're not calling them back and it's a Friday afternoon and you're on a yacht, or I will say that I have a little bit of an issue at times when people are really advocating for the little people and, you're publicly on your law page on yachts and jets and this. I think it's a little bit of a disconnect to the average person. So I think just being sensitive. I think everyone should have the right to blow off steam and express themselves. I certainly do. I certainly do not apologize for my extracurricular activities and travel. And that's the thing, you shouldn't feel bad about that. People work hard for different reasons. If you want to work hard to go on a jet, if you want to work hard to support your family, whatever it is, you should embrace that.
For sure. Yeah, that makes a lot. I do understand the disconnect though. I do get that.
It is.
Through my line of work. And I think that is I don't think it's being overly sensitive. I think it's being empathetic and being genuine actually.
Yeah. And I think it's a little tone deaf. I think it is a little tone deaf. And I think, going back to your marketing in a way, it's opened up this whole, people can reach out in a way they've never been able to. Right. People that have been afraid to pick up the phone can send a message or DM. Those tools are invaluable. But I do think, there's all these layers, when someone's calling somebody for an attorney on a generic line and it takes 6 people they're speaking to, it's just, I want to still be in a lot of ways the old school, on paper, in person. I mean, I drive to my client's house.
Right here. I keep my notes in paper, so I get it. I hear it.
No, yeah. I mean, and part of it too is, when we get a call and it's a case and I drive to someone's house for an intake and I'm sitting in their living room and I'm reading, what sort of person they are, their family, what they're going through, the struggle, it gives me sort of that motivation and inspiration to be a better advocate for them. So even when it's something as simple as a phone call with an adjuster, I'm seeing the way they live and how many people they're accountable for. And it gives me that fire to speak up for them.
For sure. So that's great. I think you're saying a lot of important things. And I really hope that a lot of young lawyers and law students, say or hear what you're saying. And I hope you're able to mentor some of the some people out there listening. So you actually took the bar exam during COVID. So what was that? What was the COVID bar exam like?
So it's crazy because we didn't really know, what the format was going to be. I mean, I had one bar exam literally canceled 72 hours before I was going to take it. Brutal. When I'm peaking.
I know.
I relied on a lot of Reddit forums. I relied on a lot of online communities of people kind of expressing, these questions and anticipation. It was really tough, just the added pressure of being in a society that, there was a lot of fear, a lot of unknown things, the idea of taking a test in a mask, the idea that you've spent, so I took it, in Florida. And I mean, I was supposed to take it in Florida, but the Florida and Mass bar exam, people have put their savings on the hotel and flight and this, and then 3 days before it's canceled. And not to mention, anytime you're a guinea pig for like a new technology of an online test, it's different. When you're somebody that writes out with paper and you can't circle your answers, for example, not being able to have scrap paper.
Yep, you need scrap paper.
And being videotaped, it's already nerve-wracking enough. And to have a camera on you, it was difficult.
So wait, were you in the room with a lot of people, or were you doing this like
no,
at home?
I did.
Okay.
We did it virtually. Yeah.
Wow.
And so you're live recorded, and I heard so many people's stories of their tests got flagged because they reached down and picked up a pen, or they were out of focus. But I will say that the victory was that much sweeter, because you kind of came from a group that was like one of one, and navigating something in a world that was kind of the unknown. But I think that's part of, being in the profession. And again, it's a privilege to practice. I say this all the time.
Yeah.
It is a privilege. So there's going to be a situation in real life, in court with clients, something's thrown your way. So if anything, this group that got through it has kind of shown themselves to be more resilient in a lot of ways than other people. And I mean, it did help that everything was absolutely shut down. So I couldn't go off and be a degenerate. I had nothing to do but to sit home and study.
No such, that word's not in your vocabulary or mine.
No, but it was good. And then so I was supposed to take, the exams 2 months apart from each other. And I ended up taking it 1 week from each other. So it was exhilarating. It was definitely.
So they offered them at like 1 week from each other? It wasn't like day after?
No, it just was the only option if I wanted to take it from Florida when they were scheduled.
Nice.
And then, it is too bad though, because I did hear of people having like technical issues or their computer just shutting down, just crazy things. But you know what? I have to look at it like it wasn't that time, and everyone has a time.
That's always going to happen to people, like that's when you have that many people doing an exam or that's just always going to happen. I mean, it sucks.
Yeah.
But.
Well, I think it's going to have a little bit of reform, and what I actually hope to see somewhat of a reform of the bar exam, because I don't think it's necessarily an accurate measure. I mean, I know so many people who have aced the LSAT and bar exam, and they're the shittiest lawyers I know.
Yeah.
Versus
that's nice.
Somebody.
Do you let them know that or no?
Oh yeah, I do. I don't hold back. Like, I have no idea why you're practicing. And that it goes back to what I was saying about like not worrying about being top of the class, because honestly, that just doesn't speak. And I am an overachiever. I am really big about academics, but those things don't serve you well in this profession. And again, it's, how you greet someone who checks you in at security in a courtroom. It's how you speak to the people around you. All of those people are your allies. Yep. And to walk in somewhere and think that you're better than someone else, or just because you have the Esquire at the end of your name, that you're more worthy than the clerk, that's a mistake, because all of those people you have one reputation, one impression. And if you blow it from the get-go, you'll never get it back. It doesn't matter how much case law you've memorized.
Agreed. It's a good outlook, good perspective. So like right now you're working with your dad. How is that? Like, how's the dynamic doing in Boston, and where are you guys?
So, he's one thing I really can say is everywhere that I go, of anyone who's familiar with him, the first thing that I hear is he is a great lawyer. He is a good guy. And I really admire that reputation. It's not easy with anybody working with family, because I think part of it is I'm going in there and I have all these new ideas and I want to try this and try that. And I think that's one of the biggest things that I've learned in a year. I don't want to hinder those ideas. I don't want to hold myself back, but I need to just step back and honestly learn from somebody who has a ton of knowledge and a ton of experience, going back to that old school way.
Right.
Of just giving him some respect. And like I said, it speaks wonders when I hear, he is the best lawyer I've ever met, all hearing the stories of all the people that he's impacted. That's
Sure.
what I aspire to be.
So what do you think the importance is in the legal profession of having a mentor?
Oh, I think you have to. I think you have to have someone that you're accountable to, that you look up to, that you learn from. You know, it can be lonely and it's difficult and it's competitive. And just in the legal profession alone, a lot of people like struggle with mental health issues or
Yeah.
feeling overwhelmed. And it's not necessarily structured so that people can, look up to their boss or whatever else. You have to have a
Right.
third party. It's invaluable. And that's something that like I definitely want to become, more proactive with. I've had a lot of people reach out to me, a lot of women, a lot of law students, a lot of people that want to go to law school, new lawyers that are just looking for advice. And I'm very raw
Yeah.
about it. And you have to also align yourself with someone that has the same approach to life as you. Like you can't have, two people on two different approaches. So that can't be your mentor. A mentor is someone that just feels right.
Right. That's awesome. And I do believe, even though like you're a year into the practice, I think you're you sound, very worldly and experienced about what you've done. You give some great advice and perspective. And I do know you like to travel. So like, what's that
Yeah.
been like in the first year of practice, like traveling and balancing like your work life?
Well, I think, that's interesting because even when I'm traveling, if I'm on the plane for 2-3 hours, I'm spending that whole time as quiet, dedicated time. It, the way that we're looking at the modern office, that's what I think will be interesting to see in the future, even as being someone who's representing people, employees. There's no right way. You're either a good lawyer or you're not. You either do the work or you don't.
Right.
And for me, my balance is my family, travel, these things. It makes me not resentful of my profession. Like if I had to just sit in a box from 9 to 5, it doesn't make me any more productive than me being productive from 9 to 1 and then taking the afternoon.
Yep.
And when I'm on all these journeys, I'm meeting someone, in Georgia who's injured in a poultry factory, accident, or I'm hearing someone's story about their brother who was, not given an opportunity. And I've actually made so many incredible connections just that way.
And it's like, I feel like
like
that's, you're looking for it too. Like as a lawyer, you're always
yeah,
like, you see the world in like a different way, right? So you're always looking for that opening. You're like, oh,
yeah.
maybe there is an issue right there that we can talk about,
I can't even go to like a trampoline park without thinking like, I wonder how many people have
what are the potential liabilities here?
Yeah.
Like how many people
I'm like slipping my card to like the little teenage kid taking tickets.
But you're not like hanging out on the trampoline park waiting to like give out business cards, are you?
No.
Okay, all right, that's good.
No, not like that. But I think I've empowered about 500 Uber drivers across the country.
I can see that like every Monday morning you're getting like 50 calls from different.
Oh yeah, totally.
A different Uber driver calls you on Monday. Hey, remember me from Saturday night?
Exactly. Or sometimes I'll walk into like a business and I'm like, oh my God, there's my cards on the front counter.
That's great.
So yeah, but it's all word of mouth, right? And for some people that way, that's what it is.
So do you think Boston Law and Lawyer Stories will ever get their party going in our network event going in Boston?
There is nothing I'd want more. I think it'll be great. And like I honestly, even like I said, from a personal level, I mean, I don't know about other people specifically, but I have met 10 plus people in person from all around. And it's been a trickling effect of the follow through, thanks to your community. And I feel like we both, have the same passion of just wanting people to do well, even people we don't know. There's no attachment to.
Yeah.
There is something great about a story. That's law. It's how you advocate for others. It's how you speak for others. It's someone's story and you present it in whatever way, whether it's in front of a jury, whether it's against someone, it's about someone's story. So I'm super grateful for that. And honestly, meeting you, you're great.
Likewise, thank you very much. And by the way, like if you ever, not that you need this, but if you ever see anybody on Lawyer Stories Instagram or Facebook that you want to be connected with, like I'm happy to do that for anybody that we have on the podcast and part of the community. So we have like a lot more to come in 2022. So like, did we leave anything out? Is there anything else you want to say? Any advice?
No, I think just, kind of just going, I'm just unapologetically myself. And I think that it's just really important that people just stay true to their values, things that they care about and the person they want to be. And not just even for women, just anybody who's, sucked up in this field. You just got to stand strong. And you know what? I speak my voice. Sometimes people don't like it, but I know that every night I go to bed and I've spoken my truth. And I think that's all we can do.
That's awesome. I love it. Isabela, thank you.
Thank you.
Coming on. I'm glad we finally get this done. We might need to do a part. We might need to do a part 2, like 6 months down the road or something.
Yeah,
and see where you're at with everything. But stay right there. And
okay, great.
Thank you for tuning in, everybody. Wherever you are in the world today, enjoy yourselves.